Hello and welcome to another episode of the Balls Deep podcast. I am joined today by my co-host as always, Tactical Potato. What's up, John?
Hey, what's up?
And today we actually have a very special guest. Some say he looks like Tactical Potato's father and that he loves nerfing Trinity every Wednesday. All we know him as is D.E. Scott. You see what I did there with the Top Gear intro?
Yeah, that's very good. I like that.
Please don't ban me. I really like Real Jack.
Don't promote it. That was terrible. Fucking terrible.
How you doing, Scott, man?
Don't encourage it.
I'm doing all right. You guys?
Yeah. About as good as it gets, I suppose.
Yeah. Are you guys all locked down on quarantine?
Yeah. It's so hard being a gamer, you know, having to not go outside.
so nothing's changed, basically.
Yeah, well, apart from the kids being home from school and having to be homeschooled now for the next couple of months, apart from that, nothing's really changed.
Oh, you guys are off for more than a couple weeks?
Yeah, well, they said a couple of weeks to begin with, but that's more than likely. We got a kind of, our Prime Minister gave like a national address the other night, and it's the first time I think that's ever happened here. So it was kind of a bit surreal, and he said that it's probably going to go on for a couple of months past that. Just to make sure it's done. So probably all the way through the summer. Schools could be closed until the start of next year.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks as well, and I think that's what's going to happen here. That's my prediction is we'll get past the 2 weeks and they'll realize, oh, well, we need 2 more, and then it'll be like, no, let's just.
I think the UK has already turned around and said they're just going to do it all the way through the summer.
They have, and Boris Johnson basically announced that there's going to be a lockdown starting tomorrow. So basically schools are out starting tomorrow, and they're actually mobilizing the military in order to calm people down a little bit in terms of preventing fights and everything else happening in stores. So it's kind of going a little bit crazy.
Arse paper is gold right now, so it is.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of crazy. Like, I'm still going to be working though, like because working in a grocery store basically means that I have to kind of, like, it's part of essential personnel, so to speak, so I'll still be working throughout it. But
right, do you guys get hazmat suits?
I wish we did. I really wish we did, because there are some very filthy people that work in my department.
To be fair, though, would be able to get a hazmat suit to fit you. I mean, your head is a bit on the extra big size.
Are you going to take shots like that? Is this how we're starting off? Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of, what's it like in Canada at the minute, in London? There's been a few cases in London, right?
Yeah, I think there was a nurse or something at the local hospital that was diagnosed, and there's been a few cases. It's pretty funny because, like, I read the news pretty frequently, so I've been kind of paying attention to what's been going on for the last couple of weeks. So
you could see it coming.
I don't know. Yeah, about a week and a half ago, I just told my wife, I said, hey, we're kind of in a position we can just kind of do an extra 2 grocery shoppings and just kind of put it away, and it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
You just kind of put it away. We have 4 kids to feed.
So,
yeah.
Right. So I was like, I don't want to be caught with my pants down. So I was like, let's just do it. So she went out early and kind of got everything before the craziness happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were kind of prepared, and
so then I guess when the ball did drop and everything went a bit crazy, we
were already done. Like we were already
leisure
kind of the curve on that stuff. So and then now that we're being told to kind of like social distance and isolate, we just stayed home. Like I'm working from home, and my wife takes care of the kids in the house, so we've just stayed home. I don't think we've left the house in the last 5 days. So
I think I left it this morning for the first time in 3 or 4 days, but it was just to go for a walk down an old abandoned railway track where there was no people. So I just went for a walk with the kids like at about 9 o'clock this morning.
Is that something your doctor prescribed? So that your knees don't lock up?
Yeah. So you gotta do a little bit of exercise. Yeah. Me and my wife we were laughing last night because we were like, we got to stay sober enough to work out after the kids go to bed.
Yeah, but to be realistic, right? Be realistic.
Yeah,
the minute the kids go to bed, you sit down and you go, fucking hell, that was a hard day. I need another drink.
If you have like a 5-pack, or not 5-pack, 4-pack or 8-pack, just kind of keep lifting that over and over. There you go. That's a workout. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Yeah, but it gets lighter and lighter as the day goes on.
Yeah. I guess if you have enough toilet roll, you could bench press some of it.
Actually,
You're gonna need a lot of toilet roll
to actually work out at home. I just don't use it because by the time the kids go to bed and
you're drained.
I'm drained and it's 3 or 4 beers deep or a cup of whiskey. It's like, well, should I really be lifting anything right now? Probably not.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. So the whole studio's working from home now. That must be a bit fucking surreal.
Yeah, it's interesting because a few of us were set up to kind of go from home to begin with.
Yeah.
So we were already set to go. But as this started to get more and more, we were like, okay, well, we need to get everyone else set up to work from home. So they started to like order laptops and equipment to get people so they could go home. And then the tornado hit in Tennessee, which like took out the Dell computer warehouse. So our order got put on hold, and then it got really serious around here. So then Sheldon actually just made the call and said, you know what, people can just take their towers home and their equipment home and just go home. So we kind of sped up the process as things sped up around the virus. So everyone kind of in a rush on Monday that was remaining kind of just took off and went home. So
did you get much notice that you were going to end up having to, like, from the government, that you had to self-isolate?
The government really hasn't mandated a whole lot yet, as far as I know. They're just basically saying social distance, stay away. They haven't really closed down Canada yet. I think they closed the bars and restaurants, which I don't really go to a lot of those things, so it doesn't really affect me. But as far as normal businesses are going, I think it's up to each individual business to kind of figure out what they're doing.
Yeah,
I see a lot of places are cutting hours and cutting employees, but I don't think there's a mandate.
That's crazy. I think we had 200,000 people unemployed pretty much the first or second day.
Wow.
And it's supposed to hit again this weekend. Companies are just being ruthless, saying, right, well, shutting the doors for 2 months, 3 months, so redundancies are just going to be handed out and we'll pick them back up at the end of that. Whereas some other ones that are able to pay them are just saying, right, we'll be able to pay you through this. But there's not many of those, We got kind of just dropped on us. It was on the Friday, and we had our Prime Minister over in Trump Town in America for St. Patrick's weekend, which is kind of like a thing to do every year. We bring over a pot of shamrock for whatever crazy reason, I don't know, and give it to the American president. Here's a shamrock, that's it. And while he was there, he gave a speech that morning and said that was it, schools are closing that day. So there was a panic for everyone to quickly go rush and pick up their kids, and it was kind of made everyone kind of, I guess there was a fear element to it, where people were afraid when there was no real need to at that point, because it was just dropped so suddenly. Like all schools, all colleges, all universities, all just told on Friday morning, that's it, from 3 o'clock today is closed.
We had a similar thing here. I think on a Thursday evening, the government has come out and said post-March break, all schools are closed for 2 weeks. March break is basically what the kids are supposed to be on right now, and then 2 weeks after that, they're closing the schools. So I think that really clicked a lot of people into the kind of panic buying mode.
Yeah,
with the same here. Yeah,
just got crushed, and like there was like my parents went out to go shopping then. And it was like an hour and a half wait just to check out.
Yeah, easily. And there was queues to get into stores, queues to get out of them. I know here in my local town, there was 2 people fighting in one of the aisles over the last thing of hand sanitizer. Wow. I wouldn't mind, like, the next day, the shops were fully stocked up again. So it was all just completely pointless.
We're kind of having that now for us as well, where our department is finally starting to get all the stock and we're starting to kind of fill up. But the thing is, people are still coming in and trying to buy, like, in bulk. There was this woman who came in, tried buying like 5 packs or 24 pack rolls of toilet paper, but luckily, she wasn't allowed to check that out because there were other people who wanted to buy toilet paper as well. And she was just taking it all for herself. I was like, you can't do that.
Yeah, they're putting limitations on the amount of things you can buy in one go, aren't they?
They've done that now. They've put limitations on everything, so...
Crazy. Yeah, it's kind of crazy they've had to do that.
Anyway, that's all the news of the world, which is not really going to be changing anytime soon. Let's jump into today's topic. Today's topic is growing up. So,
I can't wait to.
Me, having grown up in India, I had my own life experiences, and I'm sure you guys have had your own unique and ups and downs of growing up in Canada, and you in Ireland as well, John. So what was life growing up for you guys like? Your childhood in terms of... Yeah,
I mean... different time. A completely different generation.
Yeah.
Growing up in the 80s and 90s was... Like in Ireland, there was nothing to do. There still technically is nothing to do. Beer and football, that's it.
Potatoes.
So So no. Potatoes. So beer and football basically was it growing up. So there wasn't a lot to do. We didn't really have a gaming society. I know in America and that there's a lot of, or there was a lot of, I guess, like Dungeons and Dragons and all that sort of stuff growing up. For me, there was none of that whatsoever. It was all just Gaelic football or going to be up, pretty much it, you know.
What about you, Scott?
I had a good childhood, I guess. I played a lot of sports. My parents were very involved and my dad coached a lot of my little league stuff, like baseball. We, my parents ran a baseball league for many years, and so I played baseball and I umpired baseball, and I played hockey because I'm Canadian, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
So a lot of sports.
Yeah. I would just like to point out, just because you're Canadian, you don't have to play hockey. I'm Indian. That doesn't mean I have to like cricket.
I'm pretty sure it's in the Constitution, though. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but you played cricket.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I did play a bit of cricket when I was in India, but I used to hate watching it.
Yeah. So I never liked. Actually, when I was growing up, I didn't like watching hockey.
Yeah.
I really didn't enjoy watching sports when I was a kid. I enjoyed playing them a lot.
Yeah.
So I had a very active childhood playing all the sports.
Watching them would be several hours though, right? For one match, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Hockey game's about 3 hours. So getting a kid to sit down for 3 hours is pretty rough.
Torture. Yeah. You only realize that when you get older and you have your own. Getting them to sit down for 30 minutes can be rough.
Yep. There's a minute. There's a reason why cartoons are 20 minutes.
Yeah, the attention span. Football here only is like 35 minutes a half, so you're talking a little over an hour and the match is over. You know.
And that's run time, right? They don't have stop time.
Yeah. Well, there'll be a half time. There'll be a half time, and that
but they don't
half time
stop
is literally just
plays, right?
No.
But
Free kicks, all that sort of stuff. That's it. You know.
Isn't Irish football basically just free-for-all street brawling? So obviously you don't want to do that for 3 hours. You just want to do that for half an hour.
It can devolve very quickly if you're playing. Right, so it's a casual sport. It's a grassroots sport where there's no real, like, the players don't get paid. The managers technically don't get paid, but do get paid kickbacks.
Yeah.
Same with referees get paid, but it's quite physical. So if you're playing not at a county level, which would be the highest level of it, if you're just playing for your local club, then it's like Sunday League football. So it's the referee could be 70 years of age. Like, I remember one match we had a referee who couldn't wear football boots, so he ran around the pitch in his socks. Because he was that old that his feet were sore and his glasses were at least 3 inches thick and he couldn't see a damn thing. So he actually never left midfield of the pitch. He wouldn't run to one end of the pitch and then back to the other because he was overweight and he was absolutely knackered. So he used to just blow free kicks left, right and centre, and that would cause arguments and it would cause players to get frustrated when he would blow for a free kick against you when you technically didn't do anything wrong, but he couldn't see that far. So he blew it anyway. So tempers would get frayed and... Like the Irish, we're not really known for being aggressive or being angry or causing much fights. So,
really?
What?
Okay.
So, tempers can get frayed and fisticuffs start, and it can end up, before you know it, it's both teams beating the crap out of each other on the pitch while sideline's empty and everyone's in, and next thing you know, there's lads with black eyes or busted noses and all that. So, it can get quite physical, but it's not allowed. In hockey, there's certain rules, isn't there, Scott, where actually you're able to 1v1 someone.
I can't believe you call it 1v1 someone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, when you're able to one-on-one, I don't think anyone's allowed to join in. It has to be 1 versus 1, doesn't it?
Oh, they can join in. It just becomes a bigger... devolves into a bigger problem and more penalties and whatnot. But they definitely have joined in. There's been bench clearing brawls where the entire team goes at it. No, I think it's just like a gentleman's code where everyone squares off.
That's what I was thinking. It's more of a thing between the players than anything else. Like in Irish, in hurling, where it's the Gaelic football with the sticks. Basically, there's kind of a rule in that as well. Whereas if you do end up in a brawl, the sticks go down. You don't use them. It has to be fists, you know. And if someone from a team, I remember seeing a clip of someone from a team hitting someone in the leg with the stick, and his own teammates turned on him, you know, because it's kind of the unwritten rule. You don't do it. So yeah. What about cricket? What's the fights like in cricket?
Oh, they just basically it's those fights are just as slow as the game it is. You know, it's just tedious as hell.
There's not fights in cricket.
They just basically yell a lot with Indian accents, like "you bloody bastard," this and that. You know what I mean? But that's about it. Nothing really else happens out of cricket. Really, it's such a slow sport that by the time the fights even start off or like kick off, it's like the middle of the night by the end of it.
I think cricket lasts a whole day, though, doesn't it?
That's only if you're doing like one-day matches. Then they've also got test cricket as well, which is like an entire week. It's like an Indian wedding.
Yeah, kind of like American football. It lasts several hours as well, doesn't it?
So yeah, I mean, I used to play a lot of sports when I was in school, like football, badminton, cricket, and I never did swimming though. I used to hate that swimming pool, and the chlorine just used to mess with my eyes as well. Because as it is, I'm blind as hell. So
no,
you know.
I think when like we used to do it in school when we were younger, the school used to organise, because there's no swimming pools near us, but there's one in a nearby town.
Yeah.
So you used to organise trips, and I remember when we were in, I think I was almost about to leave primary school, and there was a tour every Friday. You'd go for an hour to the swimming thing, and you were getting lessons. And I remember going, and one of the students crapped himself in the pool, and it was floating on the pool towards the people, and we ended up all having to go out and leave the swimming pool, and that was it. The school was never invited back. I wasn't allowed back because the whole pool had to be drained and cleaned and a whole lot, because this one guy decided he was just gonna evacuate in the pool.
See, you say that it was an actual floating turd. There was something similar that happened as well when we were in India. This was also when I was in, I think I had just started secondary school, and we had a pool in our school. Someone went in, and I think he had the shits or something, because it was not a solid piece. It was just a brown kind of area of effect around him, so to speak. It was quite disgusting.
Area of effect.
Look like it's a game.
Oh God, that's
AOE around him.
It literally was. It started off with like a small, brown dot, which just kind of spread out like the coronavirus. It was quite vile. Everyone had to jump out of the water as well, because it was just so bad.
Oh,
I'd imagine anyone trying to stay in the water, there'd be something wrong with them.
Yeah, that is true.
That is vile.
Do you have any like interesting stories growing up which you had? Like for me, I found out only recently that Scrooge McDuck was Scottish.
Does Scott know who Scrooge McDuck is? I'm sure he does.
Yeah, he's the guy who swims his vault with all his coins.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not know.
What the hell was he
Scottish.
for you?
No,
was he?
He was still the same
Scottish
for me. So the thing is, growing up in India, a lot of those cartoons that I used to watch, they were all dubbed in Hindi. They used to be in English originally, but then eventually they got dubbed in Hindi, and I was like, okay, fair enough. And I started watching these cartoons, and I used to love watching DuckTales and Johnny Quest and Tom and Jerry and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they have these Hindi dubs for all the characters, so growing up, the only thing I know is that Scrooge McDuck he's got a Hindi accent, so he's Indian. And then I was watching someone play Kingdom Hearts 3 recently on stream, like a year ago or so, and I heard Scrooge McDuck talking that game. And he had a Scottish accent, and I was so confused. I was like, why does he have a Scottish accent? He's Indian. What's going on here? What is this, terrible game that doesn't even do accents right? And everyone in chat just kind of jumped at me. It's like, what are you on about? He is Scottish. Like, McDuck in his name gives it away. But it didn't click in my head at all. So for 18, 19 years of my life, I thought Scrooge McDuck was Indian. And I used to tell people that as well, that he was Indian. Oh, that was a big debate for me.
It could be the opposite way. He could be Indian, and
everyone else just appropriated it.
Yeah, maybe we're wrong.
Interesting stories growing up. Nothing like that, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think
it was pretty extreme for us. I think we don't have a lot of dubbing, and I didn't have a lot of exposure to foreign cartoons or stuff like that growing up. It was all just Saturday morning cartoons, whatever was on. So nothing crazy like that.
John, did you have anything that happened with you?
With regards cartoons and stuff like that? Not really. Maybe just with regards pronouncing them, I think.
I guess the only one was the weird Raggedy and Doll cartoons which you ended up watching. What's that thing you were talking about on stream the other day?
Which one?
I don't know. There was some Raggedy one you were talking about a doll.
Oh, we had one called Bosco.
Yeah, that's the one.
And he's basically this little hand puppet, this little kind of Raggedy Doll hand puppet, like ginger one, with a really high-pitched voice. And he was terrible. It was terrible, so it was. But there was a lot of innuendo in it. And then we had another one called Dustin the Turkey. And
what?
We had this thing. If you look up Dustin the Turkey,
Dustin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said dust in the turkey. I got really confused.
No, his name is Dustin. the turkey, and he basically was like the presenter of like one of the presenters.
Sounds like
of,
you're doing something rude to the turkey.
Yeah, no.
I know, yeah, dusting him. It's a type of seasoning, right? That's what that is.
Oh no! Don't say that. That makes it worse.
We sent him. We sent him to the fucking Eurovision.
What?
We sent a puppet to the Eurovision Song Contest because we had won it a few years in a row, and it costs. Like when any country wins the Eurovision Song Contest, it costs a couple of million to host it the next year because you have to have like the big stadium and all the production of it and all that. So we had won it several years in a row, and then after that, we just started sending anyone. You know, some lad from his local pub. Yeah, go on, where you go with your guitar? You can join in on it, and it wouldn't even get past the kind of early phase of it. But then it was only a few years ago we sent the turkey. And there's a whole, if you go on YouTube and look it up, Dustin the Turkey Eurovision, there's a whole thing of him on the stage in like a DJ booth with this rubber turkey talking in a really thick Dublin accent, trying to sing in like a really thick Dublin accent. So it is, and it's embarrassing as all hell. But it was the Irish way of saying we don't want to win this. We're done. Can't afford it, you know.
Can you imagine the self-esteem of everyone else who lost to a fucking turkey?
Oh, there was no chance of them losing to. There was no chance of them losing to that. I literally just typed in Dustin to YouTube, and the first thing that comes up is Dustin the Turkey Eurovision 2008. Wow, it was 2008. It feels like yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Back in my day.
Hey, shut up.
Wait, hold up. You can't give Scott grief over that. Aren't you like 100 years old as well, John?
No, I'm in my prime.
You just had like your 100th birthday the other month.
Dude, no, 21 years of age. People get kind of confused just because I've got grey beard. That's all.
You don't even have the beard anymore. You took it off.
The wind blew it off.
So here's the question, John. When you took your beard off, was there like a lighter skin patch there because you took your beard off? Because it wasn't, it didn't see the sun.
No, dude, there's no sun in Ireland. There's no sun in Ireland, so it doesn't matter. I'm practically translucent anyway. So it doesn't matter whether you have the beard or not. You're the same shade of white.
That's what I need. No sun. I have two shades,
live in
bright
like a
red
tropical...
and white.
Yeah. It must be really fucking weird. Well, it would be for us in Canada because you go from like really cold to quite hot, don't you, in the summer?
You get like all 4 seasons, don't you?
Yeah, the year I was there for TennoCon, when it was the Sunday for that festival that there's beyond, just after TennoCon, it was a scorcher. I remember I was there with Greg, the guy from Scotland, and we were getting burnt, so it was that hot.
Was Scott's head on Greg's head on fire?
There was a stall there. There was a stall, and he had to go to the stall and get hats. And he went to the stall, and you wouldn't hear his accent. And she goes, "Oh, I have a Scottish hat here for you." And I had sent him because I was sitting down with like Zeno Gallion and all them, and Rebecca and them. They're all sitting down in the group underneath the tree. And I said to Greg, "Get me a hat as well." And he went to the lady and he says, "Get a hat." And she goes, "Yeah, you're Scottish. I've got a hat here with the Scottish flag." And he goes, "Oh, I'm looking for my mate as well. He's looking for an Irish flag." And she goes, "Sorry, we don't do hats for third world countries."
See, there you go. I've been calling you a third world country for months now, John. You literally validated what I said. Can't even get like.
But I don't know if she said that or if he just said that being a dick. So I don't know. So it could have been both. Oh, he got me a really stupid looking hat, and then Rebecca made me wear it. It looked awful as well.
Do you still have that hat?
I don't think I do, actually. I think it went straight in the bin the minute I landed.
Do you have any stories of when you used to play sports? Like, I remember when I was doing a lot of badminton back in school. I was playing it a lot. Like, I really got into badminton a lot, and we used to play it quite regularly as well. And I was playing with a friend of mine, and my racket was... It had seen a lot of wear and tear, and I went for a shot as the shuttlecock was coming over. The head of the actual badminton racket snapped off and went flying, aimed right at my friend's head, and it missed him just barely. Like hitting him really, really hard in the face. Like I thought it hit him, but it didn't actually hit him. Now that I'm thinking back to it.
For me, unlike Scott's parents were obviously very into the whole sport thing with him growing up. Mine weren't. My dad worked on building sites, so he was always away, always walk. I
Yeah.
never went to any of my football matches. I've played football from the age of 8 up until only a few years ago when I was forced to stop because of my knees. And in that time, my dad went to one match, and it was a final of the under-18 championship. And I had captained the team the whole way through it, but I was the vice captain. The actual captain was injured the whole season, but he came back just for the final, and they gave him the captaincy for the final. And I remember being really annoyed because I had captained the whole way through and we had won everything. And then during the final, I remember I started a massive brawl because the guy that I was marking was niggling me and punching me in the ribs. And when no one was looking, I punched him in the mouth. And next thing, there was a big brawl, and he got sent off for swinging at me because the ref didn't see me swinging at him, only seen him swinging back at me.
Always the way.
Yeah, it's always the way. So he got sent off. Then another one of their players got sent off, but we still lost. We lost the final by quite a bit. And I remember that getting really annoyed at the manager and that after the game and refusing to ever play again and all thrown like a complete hissy fit because I had captained the team the whole year and then I lost it just for the final and it was the only game we lost all year. Other than that, no real things. We used to, because it's an amateur sport, you'd go on the beer on a Saturday night and you'd have a game Sunday morning and you could still be pissed drunk to Sunday morning going to play the games, which could be quite funny, watching some of your mates the other end of the field getting sick at the side of the pitch because you can't really run when you're dying of a hangover if you've had a complete skinful of beer the day before.
Oh, yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, so it kind of catches up on you and you have no choice but to kind of get it out of your system. So it can be quite funny seeing that. It'd be weird on an ice hockey rink, though.
Oh, yeah. It sucks with a helmet on. Yep.
I went ice skating once. I haven't been back again. I nearly killed myself with my own skate. But,
yeah. If you don't do it at an early age, it's a tough thing to pick up when you're older. We run a hockey team at DE, actually, and we've had some people join that are completely new to hockey, never skated before. They're like, yeah, I'll come out and play hockey.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I remember the very first time one of the guys came out, he fell face first right into the boards. I was like, oh my God, he's literally going to kill himself. So we ended up paying for skating lessons for him to try to get him going and stuff. But man, it's a tough thing to pick up when you're older, and the guys that do it are really impressive. So
yeah, you wouldn't have the same, I guess, coordination older as you would younger, or you wouldn't have the same flexibility if you did fall.
It's falling. Like when you fall on the ice, you fall hard, right? So it's not a fun thing to do. And
it's not exactly a soft surface either.
No, not at all. Even in full gear, you can still fall and kind of hurt yourself. So it's tough.
So I think around here in Leeds, around Christmas time, we get the German market, and they usually end up having an ice rink as well before the German market goes up. So people who want to do ice skating, they can. Yeah, that's when I went. This is about 5 or 6 years back. It was me and I think 6 other friends. Now, all of these people have been ice skating before, and they know how to do it in some capacity or the other. Me, I've never done it. It's like watching... have you ever seen Over the Hedge, the movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember that scene with Hammy the squirrel where he's trying to run on a wooden floor, but he can't because he has no grip? That was me on ice. I couldn't do anything. And
I'm just picturing Bambi. That's all I'm picturing, dude.
Yeah, it was Bambi.
I've seen enough people that don't know how to skate attempt to skate to know what you're doing. So
I remember doing rollerblading when I was younger, and then thinking that I could ice skate because I could rollerblade. And I remember going up onto the rink in Belfast on a school trip. And going out onto it, and the first thing I did was, do you know when your legs start to go from under you and you instantly try to put your feet back down?
Yep.
So you end up kind of in that running motion, but you still end up falling backwards and cracking your head at the ground.
Yep.
Literally 2 seconds onto the ice, that's what I did. I was like, I can do this. I've been rollerblading for a while, you know? I've been hanging off the back of tractors going up the road at 30 mile an hour with rollerblades and things like that. So I was thinking it'd be great. Straight onto the ice rink, crack my head at the ice, seeing stars.
But yeah, I bet that hurt. Do you have a helmet on?
No. A hat. I had a monkey hat on. I had just one of those black kind of hats on. That was it.
Crazy.
I ended up just seeing stars.
I was gonna say you're lucky. That's it.
Yeah, no, it was one of those hats that was kind of, where you double fold it. So I guess that might have helped me a little bit.
Yep.
I guess I'll know when I'm older and I start having fucking hallucinations or something when I'm older.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be in that same boat playing all the sports I played.
Concussions.
Oh yeah, I've had my fair share. Playing hockey all through as a kid and getting your bell rung, and as a kid they're just like, oh, you're fine, right? Oh yeah, totally, coach, put me back in.
Shake it off, and then you go back in and you can't remember where you are.
Oh yeah.
What you're doing? No, what's the score? Who are we playing against?
Yep.
I've been there.
I played football, I guess American football. So
Hand
all
egg.
through high school.
We call it
Hand egg
hand egg,
ball,
right? It's
yes.
hand egg, yeah.
Yeah, so I played that all through high school, and my first year I didn't play a lot, but then my second year I ended up being a starter. But I was playing what they call both ways, so playing offense and defense. So the only time I ever really left the field was if we scored. So
Yeah.
I was on the field a lot and played the entire game, and it was all like at that age we were taught like lead with your head. So you're basically driving your head into another kid's head over and over for 3 hours. So I remember going home and sleeping for 24 hours and getting up and asking my parents, so did we win?
God, yeah.
Because I just had no clue. I had no clue what.
Yeah, because it's different now. It's regulated completely different now, isn't it?
Because yeah.
That kind of mentality. Yeah.
I played that, and I played rugby all through high school and college.
And you were a prop in rugby, weren't you? Your front row.
I was a prop.
Yeah, so you were doing the fucking same thing as what you would have been doing in American football. You're basically going into scrums shoulder to shoulder, like
shoulder. Yep. So I actually, at the end of college, I had to my last probably month before I finally stopped playing. I had to stop playing because like I couldn't turn my head without being like lightheaded and dizzy. So I kind of told the coach like, hey, I can't even run around the field without getting a headache. So I think I need to take a break.
You just come over and pour water on you and say, water will fix it. Water fixes everything in sports when you're younger. Yeah, I'm after hurting me first. Quick, get water. We used to have
rub some dirt on it. You're fine.
Yeah, a bit of spray, a bit of coolant spray.
Yeah,
on the injury. There, you're fine. You know, but it's bent the wrong way. It's bent the wrong way. It's not supposed to be bent like that. Spray it more.
It's really funny you say that because that particular thing is exactly what happened to me, John. And the whole put water over it was literally the excuse used. I think that is like a universal thing. So in India,
it is,
like we used to play rugby, but we didn't really know rugby properly. Like I happened to have been given a rugby ball by one of my cousins when they were visiting India from America, right? So I had a rugby ball, so I took it to school with me. And I was like, all right, let's play some rugby. Let's do this, let's do that. And we had seen like snippets of it in movies and TV shows. So we had a bit of an idea of how rugby's played, but not really. No one actually knew how to play. We all knew that it was a physical sport and it was just an excuse to pile on each other. So all the lads basically used to just kind of do that. We split up into teams and we play. And at one point there was a dog pile and there were these people just jumping on top of each other and everything else. And there was where the dog pile had happened, it was next to this area that was a little bit lifted up. And one of the other players on my team, he jumps on top of it and he thinks he's like a WWE wrestler because he jumps like what's it called? Rey Mysterio. He thinks he's Rey Mysterio, but the problem is he's like fucking 20 stone or something. And he just lands on top of all of them and just turns them all into a pancake. The thing is, I'm at the bottom of this thing and he lands on my left thumb. It bends back so far back, it snaps. And you know, like when your bone breaks or whatever else and it's just kind of flopping around, you know, like that scene from the Harry Potter movie. That's basically what happened to my thumb. And I didn't realize that had actually happened. And I was just like, I went back to playing after we all kind of recovered and started going. And one of my friends just points at my hand and he goes, what's wrong with your hand? And then I looked at it.
Bent the wrong way.
Yeah, I saw my thumb bent all the way back. I passed out. I actually looked at it, passed out, and fell back. And that's it. That's all I remember. When I woke up, I was in the nurse's, in her office. Right. And she actually legit said to me, just put your hand in this bucket. It's full of ice cold water. This will help with everything. I was like, okay, fine. While I'm crying, tears streaming down my face, I'm putting my hand in this bucket of ice cold water. It's doing nothing. I have no sensation in my hand, and I'm still in absolute tears as well. She's like, stop crying. The water will fix it. I'm like, no, it's not fixing anything. You're lying to me.
Yeah.
I guess the ice cold would have all right, but water itself won't.
I think the ice is just meant to keep the swelling down a bit.
Yeah.
Like I've seen some nasty injuries playing sports because like adrenaline's a hell of a drug, right?
Yeah.
So,
I had my ear nearly ripped off.
I've seen people playing that have broken their leg and try to get up twice.
Yeah.
Literally get up, they fall down because their leg's not there, and then they try to do it again, and then they realize, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I need to lie down. Yeah, then I guess the adrenaline wears off and that kind of nausea, dizziness hits you and you go. Like I broke my right collarbone twice about 3 years ago, where the first time I broke it, I got clean through on goal and the fullback was running behind me and he literally rugby tackled me. And because he was a good bit heavier than me, the weight of him crashing me to the ground basically crushed my right collarbone. And I remember getting up and calling a load of names and trying to get at him. But I couldn't lift my right arm. But it only hit me for a few seconds after that. And then a few weeks later, while I was doing while it was on the mend. It was about 5 weeks later, and I was told I could go back to light football training. I went back to light football training, and I overreached for the ball, and just overreaching popped my collarbone out again. Same thing. You think it's just a pain.
Yeah.
And then the kind of nausea hits you a few seconds later, then the lightheadedness, and then it's a case I need to fucking sit down, I'm going to black out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be quite bad. It can be quite bad once the adrenaline wears off.
What sort of kids were you in school? Were you like mischievous or like class clown?
I was a terrible kid. Terrible.
I can.
I had a really terrible temper, and I didn't pay attention a lot in school.
Oh my god!
I have a really good
I'm talking to a mirror.
For some reason, I have a really good memory, so I never ever really had to take a lot of notes and stuff in school. So I just basically goofed off and drew pictures, but I still did okay in school because like I could just sit there and listen to someone speak.
Yeah.
And give the lecture, and then I could basically just remember it. So I was lucky that way. But generally, as a student, I was terrible.
I was the same. Without the memory, without generally doing okay. I was basically the class clown, or tried to be the class clown, just to try and make people laugh because I enjoyed that. But then I wouldn't pay attention to schoolwork. But I didn't stay in school for a whole lot of time. I left when I was 16 to go and work, so to work on building sites and work as a welder. I didn't stay there long enough to get a big impression out of it, at school. I was suspended for the 3 years I was in my secondary school from the age of 13 to 16. I think I was suspended 4 times for like bunking off and getting in fights. So yeah, I was a terrible student, terrible.
I remember the 2 times, like I used to be pretty aggressive as well in school, but that was for, I guess, good reason. Being in India, you would never expect that you would have to deal with racism, but you kind of did, because I'm Sikh. Growing up, I was going to a Hindu school,
yeah, just loads of different.
Yeah, so I was basically being mocked for being Sikh. And I think it was in my first year or my second year. I used to have long hair and I used to have a turban, which I used to tie. And one of my friends, he was actually a friend eventually after the whole thing that happened. And he accidentally, he was mocking me and everything else. And I just kind of let it slide because I thought, it was a joke, whatever else. And he accidentally knocked my turban off. I went into like a full-on Krogan style blood rage, and I don't know what happened. I was crying. I knocked him down, and I was like just pummeling away at his face. I was like on top of him, like well, I'm just punching away left, right, going at it. And the teacher's behind me trying to pull me off, and she can't pull me off. And there are other kids as well. Like the other kids started crying because of the kid who I was punching was he was bleeding a little bit, and there were some other kids as well who were crying. And me, like I don't know what had happened. I just gone into like a blood rage kind of thing. And eventually he realized it was his fault. He apologized to me even though I, turned him into a pulp. I think that was one time when I had like aggression problems. And the second time was, I think like in 8th grade, where it wasn't even an aggression thing, but I accidentally knocked a friend down when he was kind of leaning back on a chair. His foot got stuck in the chair and it nearly dislocated his knee. And I got into trouble with that, and I almost got expelled from school for that. He covered for me, luckily, and he said it was his own fault, not mine, so I didn't get expelled from school. And I think that was like the last time any kind of aggression that I had just mellowed out. Then it basically just, like you said, become the class clown and just kind of messing around and being stupid and all that kind of stuff.
I said I didn't think you'd have racism in India itself, considering.
Yeah.
But then I know there's different kind of, I guess, tiers, isn't there, or religions.
Yeah, basically that's what it comes to. I mean, I didn't even see the worst part of some of the more, I guess, race specific like fights and riots and all that kind of stuff that happened. My parents did, because the Gandhis, right, like Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi and all that kind of stuff, they're like big names and they're Hindus. And in 1984 Indira Gandhi was assassinated by a Sikh person. And long story short, because of the outrage of all that, Hindus started like murdering and rioting and killing Sikh families and all that kind of stuff. My mom was telling me about this, that luckily the neighborhood that we lived in was a really good neighborhood. I wasn't born back then because I was born in 89. This was in 84. And she was telling us that literally about 7 or 8 blocks away from where our house was, there were people, like mobs, running around with torches and killing people by putting them in tires and setting the tires on fire. That's how kind of crazy it was as well. And you would think that, in a country like India, you wouldn't have that kind of stuff, but you do. I mean, look at what's going on with the whole coronavirus thing right now with people, picking out on the Chinese people, for example. People go crazy.
Yeah, but that's just because the tag they've put on it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons. But my point is, people go crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that people are like using race as a thing in this. It's like this is a human problem, guys.
I seen someone saying, "Oh well, maybe if they didn't eat bats, you know, it's." I think it was a senator in the U.S. talking about they got it because someone ate a bat, and you shouldn't eat bats, and that's because it was done in China, so therefore it's the Chinese virus. And then they're like, "Well, what you wouldn't call the Spanish flu racism because it's from Spain, but technically it's not from Spain." The guy's saying that it's the Spanish flu when it's not.
Yeah.
I never looked up where it actually originated.
That was they were the first to report it. That's why they called it that.
Yeah, it was during the war. Basically, media outlets in certain countries couldn't report on certain things because it would, I guess, demoralize the troops.
Yeah.
So Spain was a neutral country, so they were able to report on it, and because they started reporting on people in Spain that had it, it got called the Spanish flu. Even though I think it's supposed to have originated in French military hospitals with US troops, you know, and I guess Allied troops. So yeah, but it got called the Spanish flu because that's who first started reporting on it. So it's kind of crazy. People will use, I guess, race for whenever they want, when it suits their agenda. They'll attach it to absolutely anything, you know.
Yep. On to lighter things. Because this conversation went a little bit more on the serious note, I suppose.
Yeah.
So growing up, gaming wasn't really a big part of my life because I didn't really have a console outside of like the NES. And mostly any of the games that I played was like, I used to go out and play with my friends in the neighborhood, like cricket, football, whatever else like that. So computers and consoles and any of that kind of stuff wasn't big outside of like the NES, which I used to play Contra, Mario. There was this one G.I. Joe game which I used to love playing. And early DOS games like Cat and, Golden Axe. I'm sure you guys remember these games.
Yeah.
So what was your like earliest kind of game that you remember playing?
It's called Gorf.
RF?
It's PH, is it?
It's something like that. It was weird, but it was like almost like a Space Invaders clone.
I've literally got an image over here. It looks like Space Invaders.
Yeah.
It was like a Commodore 64 or something like this. And I just remember I was just demolishing the joysticks for it because basically the only movement was basically back and forth. So you just had to crank it back and forth on the joystick and then be shooting. I must have went through like 10 or 15 joysticks before my mom just finally said that enough's enough. You can't play this game no more. That was my earliest. And then
it was a cassette game as well. So you had to listen to the whole dee dee as it's loading up, did you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty ghetto. It was awesome back then. It was a video game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then I got a NES. I got a really early NES. It was one of the first kids in my kind of friend group to have one, and I was playing it so much my parents had to like take it away from me, and I wasn't doing so great in school at the time, so I had to trade hours of reading for hours of playing. So I'd have to read for an hour if I wanted to play for an hour. Very early on, I ended up starting to read a lot because I wanted to play Mario and Contra and Life Force, which was like a Konami game as well, side scroller.
I relate to that, and I'd like to say I found a workaround for that, which wasn't great for my grades. I made friends with one kid who was an only child, and he was from a rich family, so he had all the toys, the PlayStation, the Xbox, and all that kind of stuff. I was like, hey, buddy, how about we play some Tekken? You know, it's all good. Let's go play some Tekken.
I did that to my younger cousin when he got the first ever PlayStation. When the first ever PlayStation came out, and he was like 10, 12 years younger than me. I used to offer to babysit for him from my uncle. I'll babysit him. Yeah. If you want to go in the beer, I'll babysit. And I'd just sit there playing the PlayStation.
Yeah, I was the same as well.
I think for me, first game was probably on the. I was either on the Amstrad.
Didn't you have like the Master System as well, John?
I had the Master System. I'd rather
you got debated with that one.
Yeah. My dad said they were going to get me something for Christmas, and my younger cousin was after getting the Mega Drive or something, and I remember thinking, I'm going to get the Mega Drive. I'm going to be able to play games and it'd be great. And next thing, I opened the box Christmas morning, and it was the Master System, and I remember being absolutely disgusted. I remember my dad getting annoyed because I wasn't happy. Why aren't you cheering? I was like, oh yeah, it's great. I love it. Thanks. Yeah, it's really, really great. And then I went away and I started playing with it. I think it was something else that got me, and I didn't play it the whole day. I think my younger sister played like Sonic on the Master System for the whole day. I never went near it, and I never touched it either.
Yeah, my buddy had the Master System, and I had a NES, and he was always like, "Oh, I want to come over and play your Nintendo."
Yeah.
The Master System was shite.
The only thing that was good for the Master System was Shinobi.
Yeah, but I didn't have Shinobi. I only had Sonic. That was all I got. Just Sonic.
Just Sonic.
Sonic. That was it.
Yeah. There was that brief period when they had the Sega CD. You remember that?
No.
Like it was after the I think it was after the Genesis. They had the Sega CD. And it was like CD
all the games on it,
which were like live video games where they had like recorded real video where it was like choose your own adventure. It was so expensive around here. It was like $600 or something stupid. But
good God,
oh my God, did I want one? And I bought it. And there's like 5 games for it. And then the next year it was just gone. Like they just stopped supporting it. It was just a complete and utter flop.
Yeah, but it kind of had like with the didn't PlayStation do that recently as well, where they really re-released the kind of PlayStation 1. Wasn't it?
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, it was basically this box. It was like a plug and play box, which was a PS1, and it had like 25 or 30 games installed on it. Because I got one from him, I remember that one.
NES did the same thing. You could get a Super or a Nintendo one, which has like 40 games built right on it.
Yeah.
I picked up one of those for the kids.
Did it play it?
A little bit. I just keep forgetting to plug it back in because where we have it located, it's not super easy for them to play it. And the cords are really short.
I made a stupid mistake of buying my oldest son a PlayStation, and then I set a Switch up in the living room for myself in my sitting room. So that's what they play. I don't get near either of them, so I don't. They play the two of them.
But think of it this way, John. They are playing on a Switch and a PS4. And you've got a whole shed to yourself with your gaming PC.
Yeah, it's great, dude. I'm locked in a fucking shed. That's great, At least I've been self-isolating for the last 4 years. I've been training for this, so I have. I've been living in a shed.
That's where I am right now. I have a workshop that I.
You've jumped into the shed as well, then.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call it a shed. Exactly, a shed. It's quite nice actually. I actually have a window in here and a bathroom and whatever, so. Pretty good.
Dude, you know what you've just done, right? You've just gave me credibility for my fucking shed, right? Because I've been getting abused for my shed, and I've been turning around saying, but it's not a shed. It's got a window and everything. It's got heating. It's insulated.
So there you go.
It's nice. It's not a shed, right? Yeah. Thank you.
John, just go get yourself a porta potty and put it next to the shed, and then you can say it's actually a room. It's your command center, or whatever you want to call it.
Just hang my ass out the window.
Oh God.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you remember the first PC game you guys got into? Yeah.
The first PC game I got into was Quake 1. I went to the computer store because my parents had bought a computer at auction. I was just about to start high school, probably grade 8. And they're like, well, we should get a home computer so you can do your homework. And I was like, oh, okay. So they went to an auction and bought a 486 something or other. And I was like, okay, well, I'll go buy some like Sound Blaster and a joystick at the computer store. So I went to computer store, and that's when the Pentiums were just first starting to come out. So Quake was a thing. And I remember seeing the rolling demo of the test version of Quake on the store computer. I'm like, what the hell is that? And how do I get it? And they're like, oh, you need a Pentium to get that. I'm like, well, this is what I have. They're like, well, that won't do. So I was like, well, then I'll upgrade. So I was like, how do I upgrade this thing? And then I figured out the computer they bought at auction was not actually a 486. It was a 386 with some sort of booster chip on it. So they basically have been swindled at the auction because they didn't buy what they actually were told they bought.
Yeah.
And then so that summer I got my kind of first job that actually paid, and I saved all my money up and I bought myself a Pentium 75 and built it all with my neighbor. And then I started playing Quake 1.
And that's what got you into, was it Quake that got you into it? Yeah.
Yeah. I started, once I played Quake for a long time and played multiplayer and whatever, I did a internship or co-op, they call it in here, with a local computer shop. And one of the guys at the computer shop was doing Quake mods. And he's like, he actually, long story is he works for us now. So he got me into gaming. And then as the company grew, I kind of looked him up on Facebook and I said, hey, do you still do computer stuff? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, hey, do you want a job? So we ended up hiring him, and he actually does all the weapons for Warframe, does all the design and balancing for the weapons.
That is sick.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but he was like, "Oh, I'm doing Quake mods and doing all this Quake stuff," and he's like, "You should learn how to use the editor and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds awesome." I was into architecture and stuff, so I thought, okay, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So kind of got into it and started tinkering around with the editor, and I couldn't figure out, like, I was building all these great big long levels. It was forever. I couldn't figure out why it was disappearing, because they had like a viz culling at so many meters in Quake 1. It would only draw like 50 meters ahead, no matter what.
Yeah.
So you always had to build your levels with that in mind. But it took me weeks to figure that out. Googling on because there was barely an editor at that time. Let alone a community to kind of support it. So once you kind of started to find people on like RC and stuff that knew what they were doing, it was, you kind of stayed with those people and we all kind of learned together.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting back then. And then you would compile your levels in Quake. Like, they weren't like just instant built. So you had to compile them for sometimes days at a time. So you would just like run the compile and then go to school and come home, and there'd be a blinking cursor at the bottom. And you're like, well, do you think you're still running, or did you think you crashed? And you'd leave it for a few more days, and then you're like, okay, I think you crashed, or you're never going to complete. I come to find out later that like id had like a supercomputer for compiling their levels. They actually auctioned off at, I think years later, they auctioned off the big computer they had to compile all the Quake 1 levels, because it took so long.
It's crazy that you start off doing something like that. That wasn't your first direction, then, obviously.
No, was it? I was always kind of an art kid. Like, I had a lot of drawing and a lot of artistic tendencies. I drew a lot as a kid. I drew a lot of cartoons. As when I was younger, and then I was kind of told, like, at some point, there's no money in being an artist. Is what I was told. You don't make any money till you're dead. I think that's what my parents told me. And I was like, well, wait a minute, I need to have money. So I was like, okay, I can't be an artist. So I was like, well, what else do I like? And then I was like, well, I like architecture. So I was like, okay, well, I'll pursue kind of architecture for a while. And then my parents got the computer, and I kind of got into the computer side of things, but I liked architecture still. So then it was like, well, level design is like freeform architecture without all the rules. Like, it doesn't matter if the building stands up as long as it looks cool.
So
that's kind of how I got into it. And then it was just like, it just kept eating all my time. Like, if I was at home, I was on my computer building stuff. And, Quake 2 came out, and I went and started building levels for that. But for the longest time, I wasn't releasing anything, right? I was just kind of making it, or I was getting it 3/4 done and then abandoning it, moving on to the next thing. And I think it wasn't until Quake 3 almost that I didn't release anything. I found out later that I actually had released a Quake 2 level, or it got leaked out somehow.
You must have gave it to someone else, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I gave it to someone else, and they gave it to someone else, and then I found out that like there was a server where that's all they played was this one level that I made. And then I redid it in Quake 3, and then there was like, oh, this is a remake of this guy's level. And I was like, well, that's my own goddamn level.
Yeah.
Someone else taking credit.
Yeah, I changed nicknames or something, or handles at that point. People couldn't attribute to the same thing. And then, I started releasing levels and getting them more completed. And then I went to college and kind of did computer programming, because I was like, well, I was into computers. I like programming all through high school. So then I was like, well, I'll just go do computer programming in college. But it was around the Y2K problem.
Yeah.
So we're going to train you to do Y2K fixes. So we're going to teach you all these archaic languages to kind of go fix the manufacturing software in some
when everything blows up, you're going to be the fucking hero, basically.
Yeah, this is what their whole course was built around.
Yeah.
So like, they were teaching us all this old stuff, and I had done 4 or 5 years of programming kind of on my own and kind of in the high school, which our programming course in high school was actually really good. The guy that ran it was excellent. I wish I could remember his name, but he was fantastic. He actually taught me more than probably the first 2 years of programming in college. So I kind of breezed through the course until I got to the last year. And the last year, the computer programming course was to make a website for like a nonprofit. So this was the last semester. So it was like a intern co-op type thing. So I was like, yeah, okay, fine. And then I got called into the teacher's office, and she's like, well, you didn't complete the first year programming course. You got it incomplete. You didn't hand in the last assignment. I was like, okay. And she's like, well, you can't do your last semester until you've completed that course. So you have to withdraw and then come back next year and
what?
And do the first year course again, and then you can come back and finish the last semester course. And I was like, wow, this is horseshit. And I basically told her, I said, your course is a piece of shit, and you're not anybody, and you're basically anyone who is here that's worth a shit. It hasn't learned anything. They're just here for the piece of paper at the end.
Yeah.
And she basically told me, well, you'll never have a tech job ever in your life. I was like, oh, okay.
When people say that. Because
have you ever seen her? Out of curiosity, right? Because it's always funny when people say when someone has done that to them. Have you ever seen her since?
I haven't, no. So the end of the story is basically that was on like a Monday where she had called me in. So I went home and I was like, okay, well, I just got kicked out of college with probably no way to go back because I burned that bridge real good.
Yeah.
So it's scorched earth basically. So I was like, okay, so now what? Well, I was like, well, me and the guy I referenced earlier, Joe, we had actually gone and did some internal testing at DE when they were working on Unreal 1.
Right.
So I knew DE was local, well, somewhat local to Ontario. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just get my portfolio ready and I'll apply to them and see what shakes out of this. And I was like, so I started getting it all together. And then one night I come home from the bar and I was feeling miserable about myself. So I was like, the hell with it, I'll send it. So I sent my resume in and I got a email back the next day from the boss's wife. And she's like, oh, yeah, your portfolio looks really nice and whatever. It kind of looked like a form letter. I was like, holy crap, I just got blown off by the boss's wife. And now what am I going to do? And then it actually worked out that a couple hours later, they actually had looked at my stuff. So by the Sunday, I had actually landed the job. So the Monday I got kicked out of college. By the following Sunday, I was hired at DE.
Oh, nice.
So it was kind of a crazy story and a crazy turn of events.
Yeah.
So the whole college thing was meant to be. You know, you been you born in that bridge and doing the scorched earth was meant to be because you ended up in a better fucking direction in the long run. You know.
Yeah, in the long run, yeah, for sure. Because I don't know where I'd be. I'd probably be fixing shitty computers somewhere or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe I would have just got into games later, just at a different juncture. I don't know.
See, that's something which kind of definitely does ring true for me as well. Because like I went to university to do game design, and when I finished my course, one thing which I thought to myself was like, you know, I paid however much money I paid for my course. If I hadn't gone to university, I could have basically done everything that I'd done on this course. Because ultimately, like what I learned was I went for the experience and that, like you said, that piece of paper at the end of it. But at the end of the day, obviously I made some connections within the industry as well. And I learned a few things which I didn't know about myself. Huh?
You're saying you didn't learn a lot? You knew most of the stuff already kind of thing?
No, it's not that. It's okay, so I'll give you an example. The course that I went to, they definitely did teach me stuff. We had guest lecturers coming in from Rockstar, Leeds. We had a few other people coming in as well. So obviously their information, their experiences and everything else was definitely a boon. But there was also a lot of aspects of the course where we were basically just watching tutorials online. I'm like, if I was just going to watch tutorials online, I could have just bought myself that year pass and watched them at home instead of paying $3,000 for my course at university when I could have just bought it for £200 at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was one thing which I definitely did see that it was more about like experience and practice. And literally, like, you know, Scott just basically proved that, like, with the work he had done, the modding he had done, and the experience that he had built up as well, you know, it's gone from that and then with DE and everything else as well. And I think, I'm not saying to people in general, if anyone's listening, don't go to university. Like, if that's something you want to do, especially if you want to get into academics, I think you have to kind of go.
Don't go to school, kids.
No, don't quote me on that one.
Yeah. I've definitely had people hear my story and go, please don't tell my kid that. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, one thing leads to the next, right? All your life experiences kind of drive you towards the things that you like.
Exactly.
Ultimately, you know, what I tell my kids now is find something you love and it doesn't feel like work. Like, if you can figure out how to get paid for the thing you love doing, then that's the thing you should be doing.
Yeah, especially instead of going to work for someone that doing a job that you don't like and taking abuse and being depressed and
it just ruins your entire life if all you're working for is $1 at the end of the day. Which, don't get me wrong, you have to do that. I went through you know, shitty college jobs and stuff just to make money. But if you're looking at your career, you should be looking at the things you enjoy the most and trying to figure out how you can make money at doing that thing. And if there's no way to make money at it currently, then figure out how you can turn that into your business for yourself.
Yeah.
If I had to do it again, that's the advice I'd want to give myself.
Yeah, solid advice.
Yeah.
Like if it's, I've told my kids, if they want to lay bricks for their life and that's what they want to do, then go for it. So, if they want to knit.
Once they're happy.
Yep. As long as they're happy and as long as they can support themselves and their family, then go for it.
That's definitely a really, really good mentality to have. I mean, I've been kind of lucky, which I find really weird because being Indian and coming from an Indian household, I see so many like people in India where they basically say to the kids, you're going to become a doctor, you're going to become an engineer. It's basically like that all the time, like, in India. But I was lucky enough that my parents were like, you know what, do what you're happy with. It would be nice if you did something like this, which means you could be settled in terms of money and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately do what you're happy with.
I think people that are happy end up probably the most successful, right? Because they're going to put the most amount of effort and work into it.
Yeah.
If you're not happy at your job, you're going to do a crappy job no matter what.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I guess some people get lucky and end up doing a job they hate, but are paid really well to do it, right?
Yeah.
Those are the lucky people, I think. But I think most people, unfortunately, have to go to work and do a job that they just hate, and then it just has knock-on effects on the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I had it when I was a welder. When I left school, and I was told I was going to get, I was doing an apprenticeship, and I was going to get the paper for spending several years as a stainless steel welder. Only to be told at the end of it that I was only learning a trade, and I had no paperwork. So I decided, fuck it, I'll go work somewhere else. So I went working somewhere else, hated it. Started working on building sites instead. Fucking hated it as well. So eventually, I guess, I started playing games again, and I kind of just fell into place doing I guess, videos and that for now. But eventually, I'm sure that bubble will pop as well because it's not really sustainable. That'll pop, and then it'll be a case of trying to find something else.
Didn't you say something about sex mattresses? I'm sure you can make like a personal business and start selling those.
That's just trying to get sponsorship.
Oh, okay.
That's life goals. Trying to get life goals. People are looking out there looking at gaming peripherals and seeing what games they can get sponsored by or what chairs and desks and all that. I think sex mattresses would be the one to look at. Just be sponsored by one of them.
You know what? I just had the best idea.
You're an asshole.
Gaming whiskey.
Gaming whiskey.
Yeah. You know how all these people do all these gaming supplements? I've
actually been thinking about that for the last few weeks as well. I'm thinking, you know what would be great is if some of these whiskey companies actually went and reached out to some, like a lot of gamers, a lot of streamers and that drink whiskey when they're streaming and talk about their favorite whiskeys and all this. I think it'd be a huge marketing thing if they could get kind of thing like that. Because you see all the sports stars doing it now, right? Like you see Conor McGregor doing his whiskey, which tastes like elephant piss.
Yeah.
People are buying it left, right, and center like it's the best whiskey going when it's shocking,
It's even David Beckham, his whiskey, the Hague Club, that is horrible.
I haven't had either of those, and now I won't.
Yeah, don't trust me, they're bad.
I know Conor McGregor's is supposed to be like methylated spirits with a hint of vanilla. That's what a lot of the big reviews of it were, because like I'm not really a big whiskey drinker. Well, I wasn't until this year. And then I decided, I wanted to try and drink it properly. Because when you're growing up and you're going out on the beer with your friends and they hand you a whiskey, you never drink it the way you're supposed to. You just kind of swallow it, which is the wrong way to do it. Because next thing you know, your lungs are on fire, your chest's on fire, your eyes are watering. You're trying to look manly in front of your friends, even though you want to kind of cry inside. So I wanted to taste whiskey properly, whether it's neat or with some ice or whatever. And I looked up different brands of whiskey in Ireland to see which ones were good and which ones were bad. And there's like the Slane whiskey that's near me at the minute. It's about a 15-minute drive to the distillery. So I want to get some of it. But then there's one from Cork called Redbreast, which is
the one you were telling me about.
Yeah, apparently it's one of the best in the world at the minute. It won loads of awards.
Nice.
So I want to try it. And then there's the one that I have beside me that I drank all of, the Teeling whiskey. As well. So
I managed to rescue that from the office before we had to bail out.
You managed to?
Yeah.
Did you taste it yet?
I haven't, no, but seeing the predicament that I'm in, I'm probably going to get through it. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fucking nice. So it is. Like I drank it really quickly. And it goes down nice. Like you said that time when I met you in Canada, how you drank the really expensive thing of whiskey. The time that was it when Plains of Eidolon, was it?
Yeah.
And you said they all taste the same. They all burn. They all go down like that. But some are a little bit more, I guess, tolerable than others.
Yeah.
So yeah, gaming whiskey would be something that I think it'd sell. I don't know why.
Flavored.
It would in Ireland anyway. You put any kind of whiskey in it, it'll fucking sell. So
I think if a spirit company was to do that and approach Twitch gamers and stuff like that to do it, I think that would totally take off.
John, let's make that a business.
See coffee doing it.
Let's do business. Let's go for it.
There's coffee brands. That do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they kind of explode because you can buy your whatever brand of Twitch streamer it is that's huge, whether it's Summit or whoever else, Tim the Tatman, all these guys, and it's big money, So I don't see why beer or whiskey wouldn't be the same,
I don't see why it wouldn't work. I guess
you guys still have that Warframe themed beer still from that brewery, which you had like a couple years back.
They do it for TennoCon. They partner with the local pub that's right kind of attached in the same building that we are.
The Fox,
and then
right?
We approach, and then I think they get a local brewery to kind of rebrand their beers with Warframe graphics. So I think we've done it 3 years now.
Yeah.
Where they've done kind of three or four like collector can style things. So they do a run, right?
Yeah.
So it's a limited run that they do, and they sell it at that pub over TennoCon weekend kind of thing.
Yeah, because I know the sheer amount of craft beer in Canada is kind of blew my mind when we were over there, especially when we went to that bar and you were getting the tasters and the tasters were coming out, and I was like, wait, what is this one? And it was like, there was a menu. How many was on the menu? Was it 60 something or 100 and something?
There was a lot. Yeah, it was fun though.
Wow. A lot of different craft beers and ales that you could get, and it was like, isn't it like, if you're a kid that likes chocolate and you end up in, I guess, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory,
Yeah.
in there. It was like just beer everyone. It was like, which one do I taste? It was kind of nuts. It was, but we don't really have that over here.
Oh no,
disappointing. Not really. Well, the craft beer thing is kind of taken off now.
Yeah,
but they're not really in. I guess there's certain towns, like two of the largest towns in Ireland are 20 minutes either side of where I live, so I can drive to either of them. And there's a few craft beer, I think, pubs or bars in each of those. But outside of that, you just have local village pubs and town pubs. Did you see on postcards or on TV of what your idea of what Ireland is like? You're just your local pub. You go down and it's the usual heads sitting at the bar drinking Guinness or drinking whatever it is. So apart from that, there's only a certain amount of lagers and ales that you'll be able to buy. You won't get the craft ones.
Yeah. It's only recently...
Is the selection we have here, like I've gone down to the States and you go to the corner store in the States and it's like, I couldn't believe it. Like there's probably 300 or 400 at the corner store.
Really?
Of different types, yeah. I was stunned because I thought we had a pretty good selection here, but a lot of what we get here is all controlled by the, they call it the LCBO.
Yeah.
In the beer store. Like we literally can't just, it's all regulated, right? What gets brought into Canada or what brought into Ontario and what's sold, it has to go through basically the government to be approved to be sold. So they have to.
You don't want to be selling any old shit, I guess.
Yeah, but in the States, I think it's pretty much the Wild West, right? If you can produce your own beer and get it bottled and put it in a store, you can do it.
Jeez. God knows what you be drinking, though.
I guess, but, I don't know what the approval is like down there. Maybe there's like the Food and Drug Administration they have to go through. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But there was a lot. There was a few corner stores that I went to. I was just like, holy crap. And like the amount of different whiskeys and stuff. Like generally when I buy whiskey here, if I go to the LCBO to buy something, there's like a little lock cabinet in the back usually that has like the limited run stuff they bring in. So they got all the staple ones like the Jack Daniels and whatever. They have those kind of just set on the shelf, and then they have like a lock cabinet where it's usually a little bit more expensive, but it's the limited run stuff that you never see. So that's the stuff I'm interested in. So usually when I go, that's the stuff I go look at, and I'll buy a bottle. Like I've never tried it before. I have no idea if it's any good, but I figure
but there's only one way to find out.
Which is terrible because there was like stuff that I've had that I was like, oh, that's really good. I wanted to get.
You don't get it again then.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, that might come back in around Christmas. You'll just have to keep watching.
It's
like,
the same thing for us as well here. So we have this website called the Whiskey Exchange. And one of my viewers basically sent me a limited edition bottle of Talisker whiskey for my birthday last year. And unfortunately, it was a limited run. It was a really, really nice whiskey. Unfortunately, I can't get it again because they've limited it to 1 bottle per person per purchase, basically. Well, you can only buy 1 bottle, that's it. And you can't buy another one again. And it was a really, really nice one, which went out really nicely. And I was hoping I could pick up another one, but now it's not available, sadly.
Did you see any of you see the Middleton Irish whiskey that was unveiled a few weeks ago?
No, I heard about it, but I didn't actually see anything about it.
There's only 44 bottles of it in the world. Basically, Middleton Distillery closed down in 1974, but there was a few of the casks of whiskey kept there.
Right.
And the casks were cracked open, so they were. It's basically €35,000 a bottle.
Good God.
Whoa.
So it is, but there's only 44 bottles of it. So there is.
I have a bottle of the Middleton's very rare.
Oh yeah. That's still like nearly €300 for a bottle.
I got it a while ago as a gift, so I had no idea it was actually that much. I was actually just looking up.
Yeah,
I haven't cracked it yet. So
the thing is, the bottle as well, the 35,000 bottle. I think it's in Waterford Crystal bottle as well. But like Waterford Crystal is quite expensive crystal bottles, crystal glass, like they're made in Ireland as well. Bottle looks phenomenal, and it's kept in this kind of, I think it's like an oak kind of cask.
Yeah,
it's probably just Conor McGregor's whiskey inside.
Imagine! Oh, 35,000, then you crack it open and you get this vanilla fucking aroma. No,
this is gonna be like a whiskey sour.
Yeah, God, no.
That's terrible.
It's just Cheeto flavored whiskey. That just makes me cringe thinking about it. Actually, I'm pretty sure a Cheeto flavored whiskey would actually go down with gamers really well. Because they're all a bunch of weirdos.
Sounds awful.
I don't even ever want to try that.
No, neither do I.
Me neither.
I guess maybe if you're eating Cheetos and you're washing it down with whiskey, you get the same kind of...
Stop. It's making me feel sick thinking about that. I'm heaving here because of you now. I don't know what I started. So, what's been one of the most, I guess, like, memorable story that you have working at, I guess, DE? Because I'm sure you must have, like, after the number of years that you've been working there, you must have had something which is kind of stuck out.
The explosion of when Plains of Eidolon happened, the fact that everyone it exploded so big that so many people kind of caught sight of the game.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Funny stories, man. I've been here for a long time, so there's a lot of stories. Some I'm not allowed to tell, and
yeah, of course.
And some are, I guess. Here's a funny one would be. I think I may have told this before, but back in Dark Sector, when we were working on the original Dark Sector, we were starting to do the marketing push for it. So we had a camera crew come into the office to do like developer interviews. And it was like, okay, you're going to sit down and the guy's going to ask you interview questions. No prep, no nothing. Just sit down in front of a camera and this guy's going to start sending off questions to you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, this sounds nerve-wracking. I hate cameras and I hate talking in public, and this is going to be terrible. And so it comes to my turn and called into the room, and the guy's like, okay, you're going to sit here and I'm going to start asking you questions, and then we'll see how it goes. I'm like, okay. So I sit on the stool and the camera light comes on and I could just feel myself just clamp right up. I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? And then the guy starts asking questions. He's like, so how do you come up with like the looks of the levels? And I'm like, well, I don't do that. And he's like, okay, well, how do you come up with the sound of the levels? I'm like, I don't do that either. And then
he's like, well, what the fuck do you do?
It was the worst start to an interview ever. It was like the guy had no idea what I actually did. And his questions were like, I had no idea how to answer. So I was just like, okay. So Meredith, who was the director of PR at the time, director of marketing, I guess, just cuts the interview off. She comes over to me on the stool and she's like, patting me on the back. And she's like, okay, interview's over and you never have to do this again.
That's like something a child would do when you ask them to do something and to do it really bad so they don't have to be asked again to do it.
This is exactly it. So for years and years and years, I never had to do any of the PR tours, any of the stuff for all the games that we worked on since then.
Yeah.
Because I was just known to be terrible at it. And then it came to Warframe, and it was like, well, we're going to do developer interviews. I'm like, oh, here we go again. So then if you watch the dev streams really early, we did some videos that we put out really early in Warframe. And I think Steve talked.
I think they're on the Digital Extremes YouTube.
Yeah. I think Steve actually did the majority of the talking on those. Or I think he explains where the Warframe name came from and stuff. And everyone uses it as the meme. Here's young Steve. So I think I was on there a little bit, and then we did like the little developer talks where we were sitting around a table just saying "yep" to each other. It was just like, because we were all so nervous doing it the first couple times, and like someone would say something like, "Oh, we played a game today," and I was like Loki, and I was like, "Yep." It's just they're awful. And then we were like, "Well, we're going to do the dev streams," and I was just like, "There's no way I can do these sober." So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to have a couple beers and it'll be fine. And that's pretty much, now I can do dev streams and these kind of things without, being too bad. But before it was like
I guess, what was it like when you first started doing dev streams and I guess with the chat interaction? Like, I know.
Oh, it was 3 or 4 beers.
Me and Frozen would go through it with streaming, where you'd first start streaming and you'd first start getting people in chat and you'd first start noticing comments and that, and you'd be going, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, you guys should know. Like, if you want your ego taken down a notch, just have a live chat while you sit there and do something.
Oh, yeah. I know all about that one. I had to sing fucking Let It Go dressed up as Elsa, for God's sake. John had to dress up as a sexy stripper, although he loved that one.
Yeah, but it's not even that. Like, that's like on purpose. It's like when you go there and they're like, oh God, like Scott's put on weight. And it's
I've had that happen a few times.
Or they pick on anything like,
Yeah, it was like that time at the Dev Stream 100 where the first comment I seen when I was sitting in the studio. Yeah, the first comment I seen was, I knew he'd be fat, and I went, fuck. I remember that was literally the first 2 or 3 minutes of the stream. It had just started. And the first comment I seen was that, and I just clamped. I just went.
Yeah, I had high hopes for that stream for you, and you buckled.
Yeah, and you fucking highlighted at the end as well. You called me out as well. Fucking kicking me when I was down.
Yeah, I was really. I think I was a pitcher of beer in, but we had that stream.
Yeah. Well, I had never shown myself on camera. I had never done a live stream with my webcam on or anything like that until that moment, and then that was the first comment I seen, and I went literally just kicking the balls. That's what it felt like.
So I guess like it took you guys some time to kind of get adjusted to this, because I guess when it comes to content creation and I guess even dev work for making games, ultimately there is a bit of celebrity status to it, because people are watching you, people are looking at everything that you've done, and then also the judgmental people talking about your physical appearance and all the other stuff as well, like that as well. And it definitely is daunting. I remember the first time I turned my webcam on, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And then eventually I just kind of became numb to the, sensation of all the abuse that I was getting in chat. So that part of me is dead now, so it doesn't matter. I'm sure it must have been the same with you guys.
You become
like
immune to it.
Probably for the first year, for sure. It was like we had to like pre-drink and just to get enough, like the nerves, right? Like there's no one, you're not even standing there talking to anybody. It's just talking to a camera, but to actually try to get it out, and you're seeing instant judgment about what you're saying. It's like, oh God. And
how do you deal with that? How do you deal, I guess, with that negative side of things? Because sometimes it can be, as a YouTuber, it can be sometimes quite fucking heavy. So it can, and so I can only imagine if you use it, it'd be 10 times fold when something doesn't go, I guess, the way the community wants.
Yeah, I got a pretty thick skin for this stuff, I guess. Like, Rebecca's the kind of the shield for all of us mostly, but like on Twitter and then on streams and stuff, I've gotten to the point where it's not that I don't care, it's just I realize that there's people that are just trolls and they're just looking to get a reaction, and they're just looking.
Yeah, I was about to say there's no point in reacting.
Yeah, so you kind of just take it as like that's how it is, and that's what their opinion is, and you get people on Twitter like saying, "Oh, you're so stupid for doing X, Y, or Z," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, bro. Like, show me your game. I'd love to try and play it."
Yeah, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Like, My favorite thing to do is after we have like a controversial change to the game or a dev stream or something where I know Twitter is going to blow up, is after I get home and the kids are in bed, I have a glass of whiskey and I sit on Twitter and I just like all of the most negative comments. I just sit there and read them and like them and then go to the next one. And I just get a laugh out of it because people get kind of so worked up about it. What I really appreciate is when people actually put thoughts into their comments and actually write them in a way that, those are the things that get my attention the most, because it's like, okay, that guy probably was mad, spent enough time to like come down off of being mad, thought about a possible legitimate solution and presented it in a way that can be constructive.
Instead of the ones that I guess would just be negative for the sake of being negative. Like, because it's
thanks for your hot take about something, instead of actually putting some thought into it. Like, if you guys want us to put thought into it, you're more than welcome to as well.
Yeah, you were saying you weren't expecting the mainline update to go over as well as it did, without the sheer amount of changes in it. So that much must have been pretty nice to see the response you got from all of the changes with mainline. Well, maybe not all, but the majority of them.
There was days before that mainline went out where we were contemplating reverting a lot of those changes and just not doing it, because for fear of just kind of putting gasoline on the community, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to do things for the game.
You've put off some of those changes for, like you were saying on the last dev stream, like for the damage scaling and that. You've done it nearly every year. Yep. So at some point, you're going to have to take that jump anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was part of it. Was like, look, we've lived with these problems for so long, and then seeing some of those problems really affecting the dev team and how they had to work around those problems instead of just addressing them. It just came to kind of like a head where I was like, you know what, we're going to do this. We're gonna live with the pain. We'll react to the worst parts and we'll fix them.
Yeah.
And but we're just gonna have to live with it. We're gonna have to do it.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we did those changes based off of a lot of the community feedback. The community team was really good at like finding the sore spots and identifying, the most popular solutions to those things. And then we'd look at those and go, those solutions actually work. Those are well thought out, and they actually still work within the context of the game.
Yeah.
And we'll roll with them. We'll put them in. Those are great ideas. So that's how a lot of that stuff actually got fixed.
It was easily probably the best response on any of the videos that I've done in quite a while, with changes, like with major changes that I've probably seen in the last year, which is fucking really nice to see. And like you said, all of the changes went down really fucking well.
I think another good thing about that is we addressed so many things with it as well, right? So it wasn't like there could be a lot of focused negativity towards one in particular change, because there was so many of them, right?
Yeah.
So it was the game. Like, as we were doing all these changes, we have like our test cluster of the game, which is basically our testing version, and then we have the live version. And we're getting the testers basically A being the public version and the tester version. And at some point, I just kind of told the testers, like, stop, because the public version and the test version is so different now that you're comparing apples to oranges now. Like, it's a different game. So you can't basically say, like, my build on public does this and on test it does this now. It's like, that's the point. We actually had to stop them from doing that and just focus, like, does the test cluster feel good? Does it feel fair? Does it feel like you can make the progress in the game still without these weird meta builds in order to do these things?
Yeah.
And once we got to that point, it was like, we could do those things. It was like, okay, now we're on the right track.
It's been really good. So it has to jump back into it as well. The last few weeks, and actually enjoy a lot of the new changes, especially through the shift now with the shields, especially
like all of the changes combined together. Like people used to ask me about, like, what do you think about this, what do you think about that, and I was like, look, realistically, Warframe, it's one of those situations where it's got all these different compartmentalized kind of features and elements of the game. But realistically, if they want to kind of fix or change the sandbox of the game, they need to address this. And this mainline update actually did exactly that. Like, it addressed like the scaling of armor, HP, the shield mechanics, then looking at status and looking at what part of the game is the more active time where, you can take damage if you're not careful, but you can also deal damage. and it doesn't basically result in being that you're just kind of using those kind of meta builds or using the cheese builds and all that kind of stuff. And all the changes have made such a solid gameplay loop, and that was one of the biggest things which I noticed with this new patch, and it was done so well.
That was kind of the goal, was to kind of repair the core of the game.
And I think it was a long time coming as well, and the fact that you guys were able to do it, it was just so good.
It'll be interesting to see the end of year, I guess, charts when Rebecca breaks them out in December next year, or this year, to see the difference in frame usage from, I guess, before the mainline update and after the mainline update. Right. Because of the armor buff that some of the majority of Warframes, bar a few, got. And then that kind of the damage reduction that shields have with a little bit of shield gating that you get as well, which makes a lot of those kind of, I guess, glass cannon Warframes be that bit more tanky, a bit more survivability. And you're already seeing people completely switching from, I guess, being health heavy Warframes to prioritizing shield over health, because you can use the arcanes to pop your shield back up, or you can use certain weapons to pop your shield back up, and things like that. So you're seeing a complete shift and kind of, I guess a revitalization in some Warframes, or more usage in some Warframes compared to what you would have had before. Whereas if people are doing duration runs, they were always using the same set of Warframes, so it's definitely refreshed a part of the game that I guess a lot of players didn't really use before.
Yeah.
And he's haven't stopped there. You said that there was more changes to probably come.
Yeah, there's a couple kind of under the hood kind of big math changes that we want to make. Basically, there is the easiest way to describe it is we have a thing called stacking multiply, which is basically instead of being multiply of a multiply of a multiply of a multiply, it multiplies based off the base. So it's always against the base. But there's still things that linger in the game that have been added over time because of different features and the way they get implemented and the way they get kind of added to the game. They're not done in the same way. They're still a stacking multiply, but they're a stacking multiply or a multiply that comes along after all the stacking multiplies have kind of already been put together. So realistically, they're just a straight multiply of a bigger number when they really shouldn't be. So depending on how a debuff is done or how an upgrade is applied, if it's applied to my weapon or if it's applied to the enemy, will determine when that multiplication under the hood gets done, which is still creating some kind of meta builds that create damage spikes in the game that are kind of uncontrollable, right? There's still builds where you can do 10 million damage in a shot.
Yeah.
Because you combine this thing with that thing with this thing with that thing. And because the way the math works out, you get a 10 million shot, right? Yeah. Whereas that doesn't necessarily break the game, but it sure makes it hard to make new content that is challenging when there's a guy that runs around and $10 million shot, right?
Yeah.
We're okay with people running around with 1 million, right? Like, we love the pinball numbers. We love when people are like feeling powerful, but when we start to have to create new content and there's basically guys that can circumvent that content with these crazy builds, that's a problem. So there's that one math thing that we want to kind of solve.
Yeah.
And then we further want to separate crit and status, but we're still trying to figure out how to
best way to do
that, because
you've probably noticed those crazy numbers more now with the armor, I guess, being reduced on enemies as well.
Yeah, that's one thing. We kind of wanted to do the two things together, but we kind of ran out of time to do them together. It was the one big change was holding up all of the rest. So we were like, well, you know what? We'll cut that one big change out. We'll do that separately, and then we'll come back and we'll address maybe the fallout from this, and then the big change. And then maybe some other stuff, some other meta stuff that bubbles up in the meantime. So, like, the separating the crit and the status is basically crits feed into status by just the sheer nature that crits buff the base damage. Yeah. So having high crit and high status together is the most optimal thing because one feeds into the other versus being feed off. So we want to create a little bit more further separation between the two so that you will still, there's still a choice there. Versus, I want to just go high crit all the time.
Yeah.
Right now, you're always going to look for high crit because even if you can get both, it's great. If you can get high crit, then it's the most useful because crit is universal, right? There isn't immunities to crit. There isn't any sort of resistances to crit. It's all just it works. So that's probably a bigger change that's going to take a little bit longer, and who knows when that's going to ever see the light of day, but that's something that's on our mind. Fix the meta.
One thing which I noticed as well with, like John said, in terms of like making the numbers a bit smaller, a few other companies have done that as well in different games. Like I used to play this game called DC Universe. They, at one point when I was playing that game, the amount of damage you were doing was like in the 100,000s, and all of a sudden the devs themselves said that they were struggling to try and make content that people could do, which was balanced for people who were at end game and people who were new to the game or mid game and all that kind of stuff. So they had to scale it all down. So instead of doing 100k, 200k, 500k hits with your crits, you're not doing 4,000, 5,000 crits, but it's basically just scaled down, and that allowed them to kind of balance out the game in a lot more controlled environment. I think Destiny did something similar as well a couple of seasons back.
Warcraft do it on a regular basis where they completely kind of just reduce everything. Like, I remember when I was tanking, my tank had a couple of million health, and then for the next DLC that they released, it had 18,000. But damage numbers came down. You weren't dealing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 million damage. You were back to dealing 10,000. But it was just everything was reduced. But you'd still kill enemies and bosses in the same vein or the same time frame that you would have previously. So
I don't think we're necessarily. We're not necessarily doing that. We're doing basically just a top end limiter. I think more than anything, we'd like if you were to graph the damage of Warframe, there would be these massive, huge spikes in there, and then there would probably be a lot that are kind of in the same range. We're just basically looking to take out those massive spikes. Steve has a really good audio analogy for this, and I'm probably going to brutalize it. I think he calls it a compressor, which is basically just takes off the tops and the lows and kind of keeps it all in that mid range. So that's what we're looking to do. We're not necessarily trying to like make your 1,000,000 damage weapon now do 10,000 damage.
Doing 10,000.
Right.
That's not what we're looking for.
Right. Okay. So here's a question for you. Warframe obviously started off 2013, and then like I remember in the interviews that you guys gave, and you talked about how, it was a struggle, and then you kind of built it up over time and it became successful and all that kind of stuff. Going from that small studio, doing everything that you were doing there, and going to the size that is Warframe now and the success that the game has had, how do you kind of deal with, like, say, the work or personal life balance? Because I'm sure there are days when, like, for example, when crunch time comes in, because it's an inevitable thing that happens in the industry, that you'll have to spend time working on, whatever patch is coming out or whatever expansion is coming out, and you have to do something, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that would eat into, like, say, personal time or family time and all that, and then vice versa as well. So how do you kind of, like, work around that, I guess?
Well, I think Warframe and the not being under a publisher's thumb has basically allowed us to kind of keep the schedule sane for ourselves. Very early in Warframe, there was probably more crunch and more time that we spent in overtime. That was mostly because we were excited about the project, right? It wasn't that we were forced to because, hey, the publisher's not going to pay the next milestone, which basically means we can't meet payroll and we can't keep the lights on. So we're forced to do this. Like when we used to do work for hire, there was literally phone calls where publishers would be like, you need to send this bill tonight or we're not paying you.
Right.
So it was like, okay, we got to stay here all night until we can send it, like until it stops crashing and the problems are fixed. So it was like, okay, well, I guess that's what we have to do. And with Warframe, as success has built and as we're able to kind of keep our own schedule, it's allowed us to kind of keep this crunch to a minimum. I'd say as a company, this is the least amount of crunch we've done ever. It's mostly directed at like short sprints. Hey, we got a big milestone. Plains Eidolon's coming out. We want to finalize it up, make sure it gets into tester hands early, make sure you get your stuff done. A lot of the crunch that happens kind of at the studio, I think, happens by people that are just involved in what they're working on. They get wrapped up in making the thing that they're making or whatever, and that's when they spend their overtime. There's definitely a core team of people that are on the front lines that work crazier hours and leading up to releases.
They push themselves more so than being told to do.
I'm assuming that Rebecca's one of them.
But there's also like, hey, we've made a marketing commitment to actually get this out, so we need to get it out. So people do need to work overtime. So there is definitely like days where I'll come home, at 5 or 5:30, spend my little bit of time with the kids, help my wife out, and then I'll go back to work, either at work or I have a laptop that I use at home that I can work from. So, there's definitely a group of people that work from home to get things done and also to monitor updates. A big update will go out, and obviously there's always the first couple hot fixes that we try to turn out really quick to kind of fix the biggest glaring problems. Usually you put out a big main line or you put out a big update and everyone's hitting this one particular crash. So try to get that crash fix out within hours so that it's not sitting for a weekend or whatever. That's generally how we're treating crunch now. So I think as a studio and being independent now of publishers and outside influence, generally we've done a really good job, I think, of keeping crunch to a minimum and keeping people's work-life balance more in check.
Yeah. And the thing
especially as we all get older.
Yeah. The thing is, I can believe that as well, because when I went to TennoCon a couple of years back, and the conversations that I've had with people who work at DE, and it's one of those things. Like, I understand crunch is one of those things which some people say it's like a necessary evil, but then I look at the work ethic at companies like DE, for example, where there is that passion for developing the game, for making the stuff or whatever that they're working on, and that basically wants people to kind of put in that extra 110% to try and make the best thing that they can in order to kind of get it out for release or whatever else like that itself. And it's not necessarily the kind of crunch that you see in some other companies or you hear about those kind of things. And I think when you have that kind of good atmosphere and work ethic, the crunch doesn't feel as bad, I guess, because I'm assuming that because everyone is working towards that same goal of getting that project out. Like, I remember when you unveiled the the Railjack a couple of years back at TennoCon, and you were I think Steve was talking about how everything was done and got ready in I think 3 weeks before TennoCon actually happened, and everyone was working hard to make sure it was all ready to be shown. Like, that basically comes down to the whole everyone's passion of wanting to see that completed, to be able to unveil it to people and all that. And having a sort of good work ethic, having a sort of good work environment where I guess you don't have the publishers kind of pushing their thumb down on you or any of those kind of like limitations, I think that allows someone to flourish and kind of work towards what they're trying to do as well, I guess. Do you think that like crunch is like a necessary evil within the industry, or is there like obviously, as far as I'm concerned, DE has a really good way of dealing with it, and I'm sure there are other companies that should potentially make changes within how they function to potentially, kind of help people out, I guess?
I totally believe in any sort of creative endeavor that there's definitely going to be overtime. I think I don't like, people call it crunch. It's weird because there's like the mandated crunches, which is like everyone in the studio is going to sit here and work 12 hours a day and come in on Saturdays. Like, these are the horror stories I hear, right? They're going to come in on Saturdays. They're going to work 6 hours on Saturdays. You're going to have to work 6 hours on Sundays. And then you're going to repeat the 12 hours a day for Monday to Friday, whether you're at a task or whether you're just here.
Yeah.
And I totally don't believe in that sort of crunch. Being kind of a creative person with lots of hobbies and getting lost in your work, I think that's a different type of crunch.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of crunch that we generally try to see at DE. Now, there is like, hey, we have a deadline and things need to get done in a certain period of time. So we have like the more dedicated sprints, we call them, I guess.
Yeah.
Is you're not going to be crunching for months at a time. You're going to be, hey, for the next week or so, you might have to throw in some overtime to make sure the thing that you're working on is done. But if your thing is done and you can't help in some other way, then you don't have to work overtime.
Yeah.
Like, if our team is completed and all the art is done and polished and bug free, they're not working overtime just to sit there and work overtime.
Yeah.
That's not how we roll. So unfortunately, code falls in that because of bugs. QA falls and ends up doing a lot of more overtime because of bugs and testing.
Yeah.
The game's gotten absolutely massive to test. I think that's what comes back to what Steve was talking about on the last dev stream about scaling up the test cluster and making sure that we get coverage and hopefully leveraging some of our community to help us, because it's such a massive game to test now.
Yeah.
Especially when we were testing changing all the core math of the game. Like, it was like, okay, well, what did we break? You literally have to play
the cluster is the size it is when you put out to the community. It's the community at large is always going to find more bugs, I guess, or more issues than the cluster will, because of the sheer size of it.
The sheer size of it. You're talking about millions of hours played versus, the thousands that we can put in.
Yeah.
Before we can release it, right? So, but crunch-wise, I definitely think there is creative crunch that's required that will do voluntarily because they're into their work,
as opposed to one that's just a publisher telling you have to be.
And then there's the mandated death marches that you hear industry horror stories about, which are just not productive. Like, if the managers that are mandating that stuff actually looked at it, it's just not productive. It's not actually getting them any further ahead. And that just creates resentment in your workforce and everything else. So it's just not worth it. We've done it in our past. We've had really crazy crunch times, like early Dark Sector, when I was younger and didn't have 4 kids running around.
Yeah.
I was working crazy hours. We all were working crazy hours. We were trying to make the best game that we can make in the time that we're allowed. So if the publisher says that you have a year to make this thing, and you look at your schedule and you go, okay, well, we got a year to make the best game we can make, people will fill all the hours they can fill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Some of it is mandated because the deadline's coming in. Some of it is just, we want to make the best game we can make. So I think that's with any creative industry. And honestly, I think that's with a lot of jobs out there. There is overtime in everything. You get the plumber who comes to your house and he shuts off your water at 2:00 and shit happens. And now it's 6:00 at night. He's not packing his tools up and saying, good luck. You have no water. I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
He's working 8 or 9 at night until your water's back. Right. So he put in 4 or 5 hours of overtime in order to get the job done. And that just kind of what happened.
Some plumbers are worse than others. So.
And some are, some people are really good at time management and they do their work in the time allotted.
Yeah.
Some people are really terrible at time management and they end up working overtime to get the things done. But they might have been doing other things while they were supposed to be working. So, but we don't do a lot, or if any, mandated crunch at DE. So it's a lot of small sprints.
Yeah. And one of the other things I noticed as well, when I think I remember when Rebecca posted on Twitter and on the forums about, I can't remember which update it was. It got delayed because you were finding bugs every time you were ready. You thought you were ready for a release build, you found another bug, so it had to be delayed by a couple of days. And one thing which I really, really like seeing within the
you didn't say that right. It's DE laid. Come on, get it right.
Yeah, my bad. One thing which I did see and I really, really did kind of like as well was people posting messages on Twitter or on the forums basically saying, don't overcrunch, don't strain yourselves, look after yourselves and all that. And I think that definitely does kind of give a little bit of encouragement, I suppose, as well, because that the community is standing behind and it makes a bit of a difference as well for your headspace, I suppose.
Oh yeah, for sure. Knowing that, I think people are becoming wise, gaming community, that it's not healthy for the people who actually make the games. And if they want to continue to get a good product at the end of the day, people that are making it need to enjoy what they're doing. So if they're all burnt out and tired, they're not doing their best work. They're doing work. So they know if we stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning and then ship something that generally is probably not going to be as good. If we delayed it a day or two, make sure that it's right, and then we're there proactively supporting it after. And I think that's something we've learned internally as well. We used to crunch and try to get an update done, and then it would be 9 o'clock at night. We'd be like, okay, let's ship it. It's 9 o'clock at night, and then stay up all night doing it. As we've matured, I think as a product as well, we've just kind of said, you know what, we'll get the release candidate tonight. We'll get it so it's good. And then tomorrow morning, we'll release it when we're all fresh and ready to go. And we have the biggest amount of staff here to support it. I see a lot of our updates are now coming in that, AM window, especially the bigger updates, because we want to be there and fresh and ready to go versus you're burned out after the entire day. And now I'm going to stay here and do the first couple hotfixes on.
Because I think it was it Fortuna Frozen, or was it Plains of Eidolon, where we had streamed the whole day?
I think it was Plains. It was Plains.
Just as we stopped streaming,
Yeah.
I think I had streamed for 10 hours. And then we stopped streaming because we were told, okay, the update might not drop tonight.
Yeah.
And
not gonna lie.
I stopped. The next thing I went to bed. I think it was like midnight or 1 a.m. The next thing I went to bed and I get a message. I think it was from Flynn 10 minutes later saying, update red text just dropped, update's dropping. I was like, oh, I'll just wake up in the morning.
You know what?
I'm
not going to lie. The new updates which you've been releasing through the day has been really, really nice to us EU boys. And I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I bet. Yeah.
Just a couple more questions then. So on the topic like of crunch and just kind of leading on from there, like like how you were talking about the horror stories within games companies. I'm not going to name this company, but one of my friends works there, and he was telling me about how they had 80 to 100 hour work weeks for I think it was 4 months, and they had like 4 or 5 different branches of their companies working together to make that game come out, and they were basically not being paid for the overtime. The thing is, that company and that game was big enough that when it finally came out, the sales and the profits that they made was more than enough that when they paid the bonus to everyone, they got a hefty check. But not all games companies are like that, like not all games have that sort of success. So like you said, having that sort of mandated crunch and that sort of kind of pressure on people definitely does not really help people out,
No, I've definitely worked on games where we've crunched and went out and totally flopped. We're not a financial success, and there was no upside in the end. It was just, we shipped it.
Did you work on a Star Trek one?
I worked on very early version of that game. I didn't actually take that to completion. But we were planning for that game, and what shipped is almost completely different.
Yeah. When we've seen the interview with Steven, that
So there was different plans for that game and that was a lot of, I would say, publisher interference.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. So I don't know what companies are thinking when they do that, because they're just kind of driving their employees away, right?
Yeah. So I have one question left to ask you, and that is related to, I guess, Warframe and content creation or game development side is, what, in your, I guess, experience, has been the biggest bollock when it comes to making, game development side of things for Warframe, whether it's, I guess, the balance changes or balancing a new Warframe or dealing with us idiots like us, all that kind of stuff. Like, what would you has been, in your experience, the biggest bollock when you're kind of doing your game dev stuff?
What's a bollock?
Ball-ache as in...
An ache in your balls.
Oh, the biggest problem. Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought you said bollock. I'm like,
I thought this was going to be another coin purse fucking discussion.
Oh, God.
All right.
Do you know about the coin purse incident?
I know what a coin purse is, but I don't know about the incident.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes it sound way worse than it actually is. The incident, the coin purse incident. You make it sound like someone's caught it in the fly or the zipper or something, dude. It's not that at all. Poor Flynn didn't know what a coin purse was.
Well, I guess the biggest thing recently is the simulacrum in Warframe. I absolutely hate that room. And here's why. It's because we put out an update, and you go look at all of our content creators and all of our champions, and they're all sitting in this gray room.
Yeah, John.
Shooting things that don't move, staring at the numbers going, is that good? I don't know. Like, it's so outside
I hold my hand up with the mainline update. The minute the stream started, that was the first thing I did when the stream started.
That's what everyone does, and that's what people use to validate all of these crazy things. And it's like, okay, I get that it's an easy place to quickly jump between your arsenal and experiment with builds, and I get that.
Yeah.
But I goddamn hate that. Like, there's probably a large portion of our YouTube content out there that's this goddamn box room, silver gray room.
It's not showing off the actual game then.
Yeah.
Brain dead AI, and you're just staring at the numbers. And it just drives me nuts, because the game is so rich in artistic content, and the game plays so much different than that room.
It does.
That when people start sending me that as this is look how easy the game is. Look what I can do when there's 15 bombards all piled together in one spot. It's like that doesn't happen in the actual game ever.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered just
that as an example of how the game plays?
Have you ever thought of just scrapping it?
Oh, I think it'll just give everyone who's listening to this podcast a heart attack.
Right. Well, what about? I'm not suggesting doing that at all. Scrap it. Yeah, get rid of it. Basically, I'm saying, what about if you had a mission that started off at level 1 something, just one mission where the enemies ran around like they normally do in a mission? Because I think when it comes to the content creators, that's why they're doing it. It's because of the sheer level of the enemy.
Yeah,
more than anything. For him to jump in and go 170. Yeah, 150, 170 and go, oh, look at the damage I'm doing against a level 150 guy. That means this weapon's awesome. Because if it does this damage to 150, then anything from 40 to 100, it's going to melt them.
Yeah.
So it's more to show off that side of it.
I get why they're doing it. I just hate that they do it. And I hate
I do it. I do it. And I hate fucking doing it. I would much prefer to have an actual mission that I could jump into. That was
maybe that's something we should address and actually put in the game.
Yeah, like even if it was, imagine if you were to pick any of the tile sets, say if you were to pick up on Sedna and you had to pick one of the missions on that, and you would allow people to just change the difficulty of that mission from being the base, I guess, level 40-ish mission up to 130, 140. If it was an exterminate, whether it was the survival, anything that would just start at that, because then you'd be able to jump in, you'd be able to show off the mission for what it was, whether it was on Sedna, whether it was on Neptune, whether it was Corpus, whether it was Grenier, Infested, and you could show them off at that level instead of jumping into the simulacrum and having a lot of content on YouTube showing as if the simulacrum is the actual game when it's not.
That's something we should look at. But going back to did we want to get rid of it? We definitely had conversations about putting caps on it, or just limiting its use, or just outright deleting it.
Yeah.
In the last little while, because it's just so frustrating that is the benchmark of the game.
Yeah.
And it's such a disservice to the artists that worked on this game and all of the AI designers. It's such a teensy weensy portion of the game that is used as the pedestal of this is what the game is, and it kind of drives me nuts.
Most of the content creators I know and that I speak to, and that I guarantee did prefer an actual mission to showcase these weapons than just jumping into a box room and trying to replicate something. Do you know what I mean? Like running around and doing an actual mission and having AI respond the way they normally would in a mission, instead of you just going in, clumping them up into one big group and just blitzing through the whole lot of them. You know?
Yeah, with the normal spawn rates and the normal distribution. Yeah. Definitely something we should look at. And
there's also, I guess, the case of like when you're in the simulacrum, sometimes what you do in the simulacrum doesn't actually work in the same way as how you play the normal game. Like you said, you will never have 20 gunners just clumped up, grouped up, and not aware of you, and then all of a sudden you're doing stealth damage and all that kind of stuff to them.
All those 20 gunners don't shoot at the same time either in the simulacrum. There's only a certain amount of them will fire at any given time, and then when one starts reloading, then a different one will start shooting. So it's not the way it works in the normal mission either.
I will admit though, when the mainline update dropped, because me and John were playing together, we spent like an hour in the simulacrum, and I think
why not watch? I watched.
Yeah, I remember you said in chat, go play the game, and we did.
Yes.
We eventually.
I think even Rebecca put out a thing to all our content creators.
We got an email. Yeah, we got an email saying basically,
get out of the simulacrum and go play, nerd.
Play the game. Basically, play the game before judging it, because there is, I guess, on YouTube especially, there is a lot of judgment being made over the last year without actually playing the game.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
And I just hate, like I said, a good portion of the videos out there are just that room, and it's like so much beautiful content in this game that you're just ignoring.
Yeah,
not just you guys, everybody.
Yeah,
but then you just went and released another simulacrum room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was sick of seeing that gray room, so we made a new gray room.
slightly less gray, a little bit darker room.
Slightly less gray.
I will say one thing though.
In there too.
When you said that to actually go play, and when we did jump into it, and we turned on the new renderer, which Steve's been working and everyone else has been working. I didn't,
because it won't work. My monitor doesn't fucking suit it.
It worked for me, and good God, the game, like, I've always loved the art style in Warframe and what everyone does in the art team, but it's just so gorgeous now. It's absolutely fantastic. John, you're missing out. You need to upgrade. Use some of that YouTube money and buy a better monitor.
Come on, rub your nose in it. Dude, you know what? I just bought a better monitor last week. Oh, the PC I have in the house. And I thought I researched the shit out of it. Definitely it was HDR compatible.
You bought the wrong one.
And now I tried to turn it on the PC indoor and it says not compatible. So I'm like, what? I still can't have it. A fucking 27-inch bloody 144 hertz monitor and it says it's not compatible for it, so it's not.
Well done. I think that's about it, really. Again, thank you very much for joining today. Had a pretty good conversation about growing up and your, I guess, journey through the game development and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, we'll have to do this again for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think there are so many topics that we could talk about that we didn't cover, so definitely something lined up for next time as well. That's going to be it for this episode. Thank you very much for giving it a listen. If you would have any questions or if you would like to have any suggestions for the podcast, make sure you do join my Discord and post in the podcast discussion channel. All the links to the socials, Discord, and all that kind of stuff will be in the description for this on YouTube. And for anyone else who is listening on any of the other platforms, my Discord is just discord.gg/Frozenballz. I'll see you guys in the next one.